Today we're going to try and push the resolution of the microscope to see some things at high mag. So I'm going to show you guys how to set this up to optimize high resolution. So we're going to try and look at silver particles or silver.
It's basically a silver film.
Silver film. Okay.
But then we want to zoom in to see the individual grains of the silver.
Okay. So this is a conductive sample?
That's a conductive sample.
So that's good. So it's always, to get our best resolution, it's always better to do it at high vac mode with the SC detector, secondary electron detector. That's going to give us our best resolution. So if we have a conductive sample that we can do in the high vacuum, that's preferable, because our backscatter detector, the resolution isn't quite as good. So if we have to use variable pressure, you may also want to, if you have a sample that's non-conductive, you may want to coat that sample and then look at it at high vacuum mode if we're worried about high mag, high resolution. Okay. So I'm just going to vent it because we don't know what's in here yet, right? So. We just turned it on, so it's the turbo is still spinning up, so we might have to wait a second.
Can we look at the camera to see the sample is inside?
Yes, yeah, good suggestion. We can look at a chamber scope here.
No.
It's well, no, yeah. There's the sample holders there, so
okay.
Probably nothing in there.
I'm gonna have to ask.
All right. We're doing a specimen exchange.
Then, how is the audio connected to that?
That one, that mic is plugged into the computer right there. That big
Oh.
one. That way, if whoever is on this one doesn't think about it, like we can pop and have a backup mic. But then it'll also let me orient the steps that he's doing there.
All right, so we're just loading the sample. As long as it fits under there.
Yeah.
Next. So we're going to start high vac mode because.
So how do we? If the sample is taller, then we need to be very careful, right? So that we don't hit the.
So we're setting the max height, so it's not going to go any higher. So as long as it fits under that height gauge, we know we won't hit anything. Yeah, we measured it.
Got it.
So yeah, it won't. We know it won't go any higher. So. As you see the camera, the reflection.
Yeah.
Do you care where we save the images? Or is there a certain folder we need to save them?
Exactly where you have the folder, probably do that folder.
Users, yeah. Okay.
Is this, do you know who this is? No, this is Selena.
Selena's,
I
yeah.
think you can change that.
All right.
Documents, you don't have that folder there? Okay.
So usually I save them on the D drive.
D drive?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that then.
And then I'll do new folder. So I'm just going to make sure we're on the secondary detector. So is this film covering the entire piece?
Yeah.
So there's not a particular spot. It's all this
It's
should
all-
be
yeah.
uniform,
There,
or not
part of-
uniform, but
yeah, part of the wafer should have some structure.
Structure,
But
okay.
the film itself covers the whole wafer.
okay.
Excepting that, maybe that one, that part, that dark region.
Oh, this part right here.
Because maybe it was held by them, some clips.
Okay.
And
Gotcha. So the higher the KV is going to give us better resolution. The smaller the spot size, so that's the size of the beam hitting our sample, is going to give us better resolution. The smaller the aperture, the movable aperture is going to give us better resolution, and then the shorter working distance. So that's another reason why we want to be close when we load these samples, because we want the closer we are to the objective lens, the better the resolution is going to be. So 30 kV, so we're going to start at 30 kV. That's our highest. Accelerating voltage.
so the aperture, does it come in different sizes?
So it's hole 1 is the largest. That's about 150 micron, and then then it's like 80, 40, 20. So it's like each one's like a half size smaller, roughly, than the next one.
So these are not continuously changeable, but it's actually different apertures.
Right.
Different
Yes.
sizes.
Yeah. That's what the over here. That's the aperture. This guy.
Okay.
That we select.
And let's say what's it around right now, the aperture?
Aperture. It's on 2 right now. So I don't know if you can see here. So 4, 3,
Ah, I see.
2. So when you move this, move it all the way out. So 0, there's no aperture. And then 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. And
So 2 is typically what most people use.
okay.
And then-
so how does it go in terms of the size? So one is
One is the largest,
One is the largest. Okay.
and they're about half. So 150, 80, 40, 20.
Yeah.
So we lose signal,
Okay. Right.
but we get better resolution.
Yeah.
So the way we deal with having poor signal is we just slow down the scan speed. So we dwell in one place longer. So I like to find like maybe a scratch or something on the surface that we have some contrast. That makes it easier to focus on. So the first thing we're going to do before we start optimizing the settings, you know, our spot size, we're going to check our alignment. Okay, so we're going to go to line, and we're going to check our aperture align. So we're trying to stop the movement. So we just want it so it's kind of blinking in and out at us. So if it's moving in the X direction, we're going to adjust the X knob. If it's moving in the Y direction, we're going to adjust the Y knob.
Okay.
And at any time, you can hit off and then refocus. And then check it again. And then after that, we'll check our Stigmator align. Same thing. We're just trying to minimize the movement. That looks fine. And then, so now I'll try and focus, and you can see it's not focusing very well. That tells me I need to adjust my Stigmators.
Okay.
It's starting to sharpen up.
So right now you're trying to focus, right? Not.
So I use fine focus, and then I go and check my Stigmators. So think of Stigmators as finer focus to really. So what our Stigmators do is, if our beam is not perfectly round, when we focus, it actually looks like the image stretches instead of being concentric. So we're trying to reshape our beam so it's round. That's what Stigmators do. Okay.
So you first align the Stigmator, and then you.
Then we actually stigmate.
And then you
Yes.
Stigmate. Okay.
So see how it's getting sharper now? Zoom in. I'm gonna hit auto. So we can tell there's some features there, right? But it's not sharp yet. Okay. So this tells me how far off center my Stigmators are. So when I turn this knob, see that? So if my Stigmators ever get way off, I check this to make sure they're close to center, okay? Sometimes people start turning the Stigmators thinking that's going to improve the image, and they're actually making it worse. We don't need to turn them much to tweak it, right? Because you can see we're not that far off of our center position.
So why can't you center it over there with that?
You could. This is to see where they're at. So otherwise, I don't really know. I just keep turning a knob, and I don't know where I'm at, right? So this kind of shows me where I'm at, how much range I have with my Stigmators. So the Stigmator is a coil, and we're just changing the field on that coil is what we're doing. So. So then I can slow it down, and now we're starting to see some of these features, right? But we still want it sharper. So now I'm going to go back to my aperture line, because now we have a better image. It's not really moving, so that's good. I'll check my Stigmator align. So that's just moving a little bit. And the Y, so I'm going to adjust Y. Now it's just moving in the X a little bit. And we'll adjust. So that's good there. AFC is autofocus align. That's good. That's not moving. So now we can come back. we're starting to see those features a little better, right? So the next thing I'm going to do,
So basically, once the alignment is done, once you turn the alignment off, you go back to here, focus along with the stigmator.
correct, yes. So now we can start to lower our spot size, okay? So let's go to 20. And then you see it gets dimmer, which is normal. So we're gonna hit auto. And it's also, my focus is gonna change a little bit too. So I'm gonna go back down, find that feature again.
So okay, so.
And now I'm gonna refocus. Let me do an auto brightness. So sometimes if you have an edge, it's easier to focus on that. So because this is all the same material, right? We don't have a lot of contrast in our material. So sometimes it's hard to distinguish. Start to see a little bit of these.
Yes.
So this entire thing is 1 micron, right?
Right.
So each one would be 100 nanometers, right? So that's kind of, we're starting to see, you were saying these are 25, 50 nanometers maybe. So we're getting there, right?
Yeah.
Still not super sharp. So now I'm going to go to a smaller aperture size. Okay. So I'm on 2. Now I'm going to go to 3. And then I may have to turn up my contrast again.
So you go in steps from.
Yep. So I did 3. Now I'm going to go to 4, just to make sure I'm still seeing something, right? So you see it got dimmer.
Yeah.
So I'm going to zoom back out, find that kind of brighter particle, do an auto brightness, and then now, once again, we have to do aperture align, okay?
Yeah, every time you do the aperture change.
Check the aperture.
Yeah.
So this isn't bad. It's just moving just a little bit, okay? So it's just kind of moving in the Y, so I'm going to adjust my Y. A little X. So it's just kind of going in and out. So that's good. We'll check our stigmators again. Those usually don't change with the aperture. Okay. Now you can see it's getting pretty grainy, right? We'll refocus. And at this time, you may want to adjust you can adjust the contrast and brightness. So I can't really hear that beep, but that means we're maxed out. So we don't have much signal right now. Okay.
Because we're just getting a very less number of electrons.
Yes.
Okay.
And then now, now I'll do a slow scan. So we can start to see these now, right? But it's still pretty grainy.
And we are at 40K.
Yes.
So what is the working distance? We are at 5.5.
5.5, so that's good. That's so right now, if we went to a smaller spot, it would get even dimmer, right? And we would have hardly any signal at all. So what I'm going to do now, we're going to check our beam alignment. I'm sorry, our gun alignment. So if we come here to beam alignment, and then I'm going to go to filament image. All right, yeah, that looks pretty good. And then I'm going to manually increase my filament heating because we're trying to maximize our signal.
Right.
So I'm at 95. It got a little brighter. Just got a little brighter.
So we are increasing the beam current.
Filament current.
Filament
current.
Filament current.
Yes.
So what's the default value for the
Usually it's like 85.
85 what? 85.
The filament is 85. It's just
So now you increased it to
95. So I'm just making small adjustments with the stigmators to try and sharpen it up.
yeah. So basically, for the non-conducting sample, then it would be impossible to.
It would be very difficult, yes.
Yeah, because it's going to be charging. And
So right now we're at 70,000. So this is, you know, each one of these is 50 nanometers now, right?
Right.
And the other thing to keep in mind too is the longer the beam stays in one spot, we're kind of doing some damage, beam damage. So you may have to move to another spot. So this spot, so you can use the image shift instead of using the stage because we don't want the sample to drift when we move the stage.
So what does the image shift do?
Image shift just uses the beam to,
It shift the beam rather than the.
yes, the stage, yes. So now we'll check this, do a slow scan. Try and. So like, yeah, this sample is kind of difficult to image. I'm not gonna, you know.
At least we're seeing the grains, so that's what we are.
You're seeing the grains, yes.
Yeah.
So then what I would do now is when I come to capture, if I right click on capture, I can do speed. So I would do a really long, slow, so almost 2 minutes to capture this, or you could do even slower.
Got it.
And then once you capture it, you can kind of adjust the brightness and contrast to make those grains stand out a little better too, right? Now it's still kind of just washed out.
Yeah. Now, if it was a field emission one, that would have gotten a much higher resolution than this?
Oh yeah. Field emission, we'd be able to resolve this a lot easier, yes. But I mean, we can still see it. It's
Yeah.
not like it's impossible.
Mhm.
So we could still play with the spot size. So sometimes I actually go back up in spot size to get a better, because we're at a smaller
Right.
aperture.
Right.
I could go increase my spot size to get some more signal to help. Because see, underneath this is still silver, right?
Right.
So there's no, when we look at our sample, we use gold, but
On
we put it
carbon.
on carbon,
Yeah.
so you have that nice contrast,
Right.
right?